So we're going to read from John 15, 1 through 8. Thank you. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers. And the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. This is the word of the Lord. Now invite our dear friend, Kenny Hebert, up to preach with us today and share our message. But before he begins, may I pray for you?
Yes.
You're going to need it. No, just kidding. God, I thank you for the wisdom that you brought to us today in this man. And I pray, Lord, that you bring discernment and a peace and an understanding to each word that he speaks. And I pray for us as we listen, that we hear your voice and we see a reflection of you today. And the message that we hear, Lord, I pray changes our lives. It transforms us. It does not go void. And if we feel resistance or we feel uneasy, Lord, I pray that you guide us and you keep pushing us along the path to a life with you in this kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. How's everyone doing?
Yeah.
Good to see everyone. I guess I repeat like Pastor Don, it's different not being a pastor coming in and saying it and take it fire, right? I'm going to repeat that. And also repeat something else he shared. He also said about when we're preaching, we need to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And so I've got something that Lord gave me about Mother. Remember Shane was here, right? Connecting with Shane up at UMass, he's up there, and I'm up there now, and I think with him, and he asked me to do a teaching on Wednesday night, and he actually gave me the scripture verse, and as soon as he gave me the verse, I go, that's the one for the second Baptist. I really felt that, so I've been thinking about this for about a month now. Some things, and so I want to share some things today with you. But before I do, I want to, anyone know what these are? Shears, pruners, loppers, even for really those resistant ones, right? Anybody have any of those in their yard? Anybody know what bittersweet is? I heard Pastor Don talking about bittersweet too last week. Even when you're pruning, they get all tangled around you, right? You think you've got them, but next year, guess what happens? They come back, right? And so we're going to be talking about pruning. And my question I throw out as you see these is like, you uncomfortable yet? Okay, Rich, you're first. Dave, you're next. Who's going to line up? Okay. When we think about church, we think we're going to come to some place and be comfortable and have fun and enjoy it. And we do, right? But church is also a purpose we come to meet who? Not just each other, to meet with God. To hear a word and allow God to work in our heart. And so lots of times, I don't know about you, but following Jesus can be dangerous. Dangerous to our own self in regards to some things that are going to change in our life. And so we're going to talk about that today, about pruning. What pruning is. Pruning season is the title here. We're going to be starting here in the very first, or the very last verse that is part of the scripture, is verse 8. And Jesus here is in this imagery, this vine, he's talking about fruit bearing, bearing fruit, more fruit, much fruit, being a vine. He talks about pruning. And he comes to this point, he makes a point about something here that it almost like culminates. There's actually a lot more before these verses and after that, so I encourage you to read all of them. We'll read this whole section of Scripture. And he says, he goes, there's a proof to being a disciple. What's he say the proof is to being a disciple? Bearing fruit. So bearing fruit is a proof of our being his disciples. So it's about fruit bearing. This imagery he's using in mind to talk about bearing fruit. But it's not just about bearing fruit. That's not in itself. Like we want to bear fruit and say, hey, look at me, I'm a better person, right? That's not what it's about. It's not about bearing fruit for us to look better. Our bearing fruit is to glorify our Father. That's the point of bearing fruit. And Jesus is saying it's not just about bearing fruit, it's more than that. There's a bigger picture here about glorifying the Father. And that word glorifying, if you look at it another way, is revealing or showing. You know, so here we are. So when we bear fruit, we actually show the Father to those around us. We reveal him. We reveal his goodness, his grace in our life. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's what fruit bearing is about. And so we're going to be talking about that fruit bearing, but also there's a bigger story. It's about the glorification of our Father. And I want to go back and I want to talk about, before we get into some of the meat of this section, I want to actually give some context. The creation story, the Old Testament history of Israel a little bit, and then even something that happens about 2 days prior to Jesus teaching them about the vine. And to kind of bring us into something to understand this section of Scripture. And so we're going to go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. We're going to go back to the very beginning. Because, you know, it's important that we catch the bigger picture. Because if we don't understand the bigger picture and the bigger story and purpose of God, the grander story and our part in it, guess what's going to happen? We're going to misinterpret our relationship with God. What's its purpose? We're going to misinterpret about who we really are to God. We're going to misinterpret God's purpose for life. And actually, maybe the things... Anybody got stuff going on in their life right now? We're like, what is going on? Okay, and not alone. Most of the time in life when you encounter things. And most of the time we misinterpret them because we're not looking at them from this bigger lens and seeing God's activity of the glorification of our Father through the work he's doing in our life. And so we want to show the bigger picture. And so let's look at Genesis 1:28. It says, and God blessed them. He's talking about Adam and Eve. He just created Adam and Eve, and he says he blesses them. He says, and God said to them, be... Is there a word there similar to Jesus? Okay, so Jesus talking about fruitful. So maybe he might be talking about something in a bigger context about bearing fruit. Okay? So be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. And have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Some familiar words are being fruitful. That God's purpose for Adam and Eve and all of humanity was to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. Now, he wasn't talking about just having children. He was not just talking about populating the earth. No, Adam and Eve were created in somebody's image. God's image, God's likeness. There's a purpose for that. This is unique for us as humans, as humanity. God created us different than any other part of creation. In his image for a purpose. So he created Adam and Eve, and he says, go multiply and fill the earth. He wasn't just talking about having children. He was saying, fill the earth with more image bearers. You were created in my likeness. Now go and populate the earth and cover the earth with people that reflect who I am. Not only that, they were then called to have dominion, or actually bring God's rule. The result of God's rule is harmony and peace, shalom in every area of life. In every place they went. As Kathleen talked about, like some of the tragedy. Yes. It could happen right in our own backyard. We are here. Humanity's, Adam and Eve's first calling is to bring God's peace and harmony to every place they stepped, into every area of their life. It's not it. It's not. That commission didn't stop. Jesus now says, on the vine, be fruitful, glorify my Father. So, see, it's about propagating the image of God in the earth. So when God would look, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, look on the earth, they could look and see, they'd see a perfect reflection of themselves and be completely delighted in their creation. So here's the image, that's the purpose of that's our glorious mission. It's not ended because Adam and Eve sinned, right? What happened? They messed up. They sinned, and when they sinned, they marred the image of God. And they started propagating the earth with people that had a distorted image of what God was in them. It was a distorted image of how they saw God. It was a distorted image of how they saw themselves, even distorted how they saw their purpose. What's a lot of the culture, even I'd say even in, doesn't matter, it reaches into the church. What's the purpose is about making sure we protect our interests. Does anybody do that? Anybody live life like protecting it? Come on. Okay, 2 hands, right? Not 1 hand. We all live with this kind of thing. And see, we've got this distorted view. Instead of living for glorifying God, we're living for protecting our interests often. It's a part of who we are and our brokenness. And God's wanting to recover us that we don't live that way, because that's not where we're going to find joy. So that's part of the purpose is that distorted image has to be reclaimed. But the good news is that God made a promise to Adam and Eve. He said, I'm going to fix this. I'll fix it. I'm going to send someone who's going to fix it. The first Adam, the last Adam, Jesus is the last Adam. He's going to correct it. He's going to bring restoration. But finally, as we sang that last song, that's the first song, the Revelation song. There's a day coming when God will recover everything completely the way it should be. But then on from there, there's the history of Israel. That, you know, Jesus uses the vine imagery, right? He says, I'm the vine, you're the branches, or I'm the true vine. Talk about that. But imagery, that vine imagery is not something new. In the Old Testament, it was something used often of Israel, where God called them a choice vine, and He would plant them. So He took them out of Egypt, they came and planted them in the land, and they were supposed to then thrive and grow, and actually spread and produce fruit, that the world would see God through them also. So he referred to as vine. And if you go to Jeremiah 2:21, this is God talking. Yet I planted you a choice vine, talking about Israel, wholly of pure seed. How then have you turned degenerate and become a wild vine? So Israel had this, God chose them, and He plants them, He cultivates them. But guess what? They went astray. It happened often. He'd send an Old Testament prophet. He goes, hey guys, you know what? You're messing up here. You need to be fruitful again. They'd return. And then they'd fall back. There's this process they were going through. And this vine analogy, so the vine imagery became to represent this contrast between Israel, God's expectation and God's ideal for Israel to be a people, and their failure to be there. So here's this history for the disciples. Now I'm going to see it in the context. Bear with me, I'm doing some teaching here first. I want to lay some groundwork. This is important. And I lost my train of thought. Hey, I haven't done this for 3 months. Oh, so I want us to see how the disciples, they would have understood some of this history. They understood that God created humanity. They knew the story Moses taught them from the Torah. Or gave them the Torah. And they knew this history of the Jewish people. That was a part of their culture. That's just historical context of their God's vine planted, but they would always go astray. And then the vine became synonymous with them being a people that were not living up to God's ideals when He called them to. Okay? And so the disciples understood that. And then what happens is, we're going to go now to the teaching of the vine. But just before that, a couple days before, Jesus is walking with them to the temple. He's in Jerusalem, he's walking towards the temple, and he sees a fig tree off in the distance. And he sees a fig tree full of leaves, full of branches, and guess what he's expecting? Fruit! Right? He's hungry. And he goes to the plant, guess what he finds? Nothing. Nothing. And at the point, he curses the fig tree. He curses the fig tree, and it shrivels up. It dries up to nothing. And he says, no longer will it produce fruit. It's actually a picture of something. It's not just about a fig tree, but people are like, well, he didn't do something nice. I mean, why would he curse the fig tree? He didn't do anything wrong to him, right? There was a picture of this. The fig tree is a picture of the people of Israel in the religious system that gave the appearance of producing something and being something. And he had come to Israel and people, the religious system, and he found nothing that was satisfying to him. That's 2 days before this picture here. So they understand this vine analogy. They understand here. They watch Jesus actually curse this fig tree. I don't think that, for me, I'm thinking like, did they understand what he was doing at that time? I don't know. I think of them being like me and you. When we're in the middle of Jesus doing something in our life, we're like, what are you doing? And then afterwards you go, oh, that's what you're doing. So I think there's something to that here. But we have hindsight. We can look back and see that there's something to this. just before the vine story. That he's cursing his fruitlessness and his appearance of being having fruit, but not having any. And he's not happy with that. Okay, and then now we come to the vine. First one. Oh, we got it. Here's his declaration. In the middle of this thinking now, he goes, I'm the true vine. I'm the genuine vine. I'm the complete fulfillment of what God intended for Israel, who couldn't be the vine, failed at being the vine. I am the true vine. I'm the deal. I'm the one. And he said, I'm that vine that can produce the fruit. He's the one that's the true, obedient, fully obedient Son of God. So the direct comparison to Israel and how they had not acted in harmony with calling in Jesus, saying, I'm acting in harmony with God's calling and purpose for humanity. I am the last Adam, and I am going to correct everything. So he's the true vine. And then he goes on and says, not only that, he goes, Rich, Dave, I would pick people on this side, okay? Lori, Dave, Mark, you remain in me. I remain in you. You abide in each other. Guess what? You are now the true vine. When I say they're not the vine as like Jesus is the vine, but they're the branches of the vine. The branches of the vine. We don't say, here's the stalk and here's the branches. No, he's the vine. He's the whole thing. He's the one that produces our life. He's the one that changes our life. He's the one that brings fruit out of our branches. He's the... First or second? So, he says, I'm the vine, but also you guys are now can be the vine by abiding in me. You can be a representation of me and living out a life that actually produces fruit. How does it happen? The Father cultivates you. You don't cultivate yourself. Has anybody actually succeeded in cultivating their own life and changing their heart? Okay. So it's not me. So it's we need. He doesn't need the little ones. The little ones. The big ones for some stubborn ones, right? But then there's the little ones, right? The little ones for when like you're gonna get in between. Like, see, there's a Nancy's. I had these other ones that are smaller. And it's because you don't want to damage the other stuff around your water. See, we go in and we just get hard on ourselves. Anybody get there? God, the Father. See, Jesus makes this promise. He says, you're a vine. I'm the vine. You're a branch. You can be the vine too. You're going to be the real, genuine vine because the Father's now going to be the one cultivating you. He knows how to cut out those things in your life that need to be removed. We just sang a song. What's that last song? Where's the words to that thing? No, the other one. Yes. It's talking about offering our life. Offering our life. We sang that song. Or we sang our arms wide open. God, take it up from me. Do we mean that? Do we offer ourselves? Do we truly mean what we're saying when we say that? Instead of taking it into our own hands. He's the only one. So Jesus makes a promise. You're not only going to be the vine dresser is the Father. The Father cares so much about it. He knows your heart better than you do. And in that, He can actually cut the things out that need to be cut and actually be careful not to hurt the things that are still tender in your heart. I'm glad He's like that. Because I don't only hard on myself, I can be hard on Nancy. You weren't supposed to say that. I'm going off script here. You shouldn't either. But we're hard on each other. We want to prune each other. We got to be careful there. God is the only true disciple maker. And the Father cares enough about us to know when to cut the things out that need to be cut, and we have to let them. And then He promises actually just before John 15 and John 14, He says, I'm going to send a helper to you. Because you can't do it. You have no power to become what I want you to be. But I'm going to send someone who's going to live in you, who's going to abide in you, and empower you and enable you to be the people you're called to be. And by the way, I'm with you. I'm abiding in you and you're abiding in me. As long as we do this, you're going to produce fruit. In fact, it's not if you, it's a guarantee. If you do these things, if the Father's doing it, the Spirit's working in us, and we're abiding in Him, guess what? We will become disciples that bear fruit, that glorify our Father and reveal Him to the world. That's what He's doing in us. Boy, now I'm trying to find my place. Forget this. I'm so glad God is good to us. Pruning is probably one of the most important aspects of taking care of vines. And the vine dresser knows the vine. He cares for the vine. He knows what to cut out, what to keep. He sees what can be. It's intentional. It's purposeful. He has a vision down the road of what he's wanting to produce in his vine. That's a picture of God's care for us, right? That's the vine dresser. That's what he's like. Not only are you going to be the vine, then you've got this father, this caregiver who's watching over your life in that way. And there's two kinds of pruning. Let's go to verse 2. There's two kinds of pruning that happen. There's dead leaf, dead branches that get pruned, and there's living branches that get pruned. Two different kinds of pruning. It says, every branch again that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit. So there's two kinds of pruning that happen. The ones that are branches that aren't producing fruit, they're considered that. Some would believe that's a reference to Judas. Seeing he's not producing, he was confessing, it was like this picture. It's like Israel, that disappears but has a little fruit. And so here's this picture also that can be seen as there's people, anybody ever remember the scripture says, you look at call me Lord, Lord. My disciples, right? And so here is this picture, is this reality that sometimes there's professing people that in reality are not really believers or not disciples. But be careful, don't you be the one that points it out. See, the only one that can really do that is who? Jesus, or the Father. We should not be the ones making those assumptions and judging. So let's move on. Let's talk about the living one. I thought, why prune living branches? Why cut off these living branches? Anybody ever have tomato plants? How about those suckers that come out of the, there's the branch that comes off and there's another vine that starts growing out. And if you just let them go, it's like this huge green bush, right? But no fruit, or fruit very green. It's not ripening. So what do? We go in there, we just break off the vines, and we throw them aside. And so they're living. And so there's this living thing. So God wants us to produce more fruit. He doesn't want us. He's not interested in branches. We like to have branches. We like to have activities. We like to have things we're doing and all that. He's not after the branches. He's after fruit. He's after the character. He's after our heart. Wanting to produce things. They may come out in activities, but we just sang a song from what? From the inside out. He's interested in inside. He's interested in our heart issue. Wanting to produce things that come from the heart, not because of this activity. And so he cuts off those, he's pruning those living branches. When we think about pruning external things. Jesus was looking deeper. He's looking into the heart issues that were. What is the motivation of the things we do? When I say, if I were to ask you, what do you need to prune? See, I'm already thinking. What do you need to do to prune? What do you need to prune? What do you think God's pruning is? We might think right away. We're thinking about that thing, that stuff, that activity. And we're thinking about maybe that person. We're thinking about external things. Jesus may see those, but his eyes are on something in the heart. What are the motivations? What happens? We may cut off this activity. We may prune it. I'm done with that. Guess what? The heart issue is still there. And guess what it does? Boop. Another branch pops out over here. Oh, let's cut this one off. Boop. So what happens if we don't take care of the heart, it's going to just continue to grow. It's going to just come just like the bittersweet. Right? I've dug those things out, and next year they're still there. They keep coming back. So it's the same thing with us. So we will look at external. So I want us to realize when Jesus is talking about I'm the vine and you're the branches, you abide in me, and the things I'm going to prune, these living things, he's not talking about just getting rid of activities. He doesn't want us to be stuck in our home as a hermit doing nothing. That's not what he's talking about. He's looking at heart issues. So when we let him prune those places, our heart is then free to flourish. What happens when you cut off some branches? So there's like all these branches entwined. You cut off one, all of a sudden there's just a couple there. There's light. There's freedom. There's room to grow and produce fruit. And see, we let God cut off those branches. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking like, what were the things Jesus was pruning in the disciples? Was he pruning things already when he was walking with them? What were some of the things? And I realized, as I was thinking about that, the 3 years that Jesus was walking with disciples, he was pruning them. I said, what was he pruning? He was pruning them from some of the religious stuff, the mindsets that had developed in their day and in their culture, that was clouding their heart, that was stealing passion and energy from what God really wanted for them. So it's no different. There's nothing new under the sun. These same things, these same issues are here today as they were then. There's things like the hypocrisy. We're looking to earn a place with God and men. Like we're trying to earn our place all the time. And then there's this thing we're trying to maintain it. We actually use people and things to try to maintain our place in power and position. That's what the religious leaders were doing, right? Hey, the disciples said, hey, Jesus, who's the greatest? Right? They didn't actually say that to him, but they were getting around to it. See, it was already sinking into them. Some of that stuff, and he was looking at their heart, and he wanted them to be free from those things. So he was addressing, they watched him confront the religious leaders and some of the stuff they were caught up in, this quest for power, looking to control themselves, looking to maintain their place of comfort over people. Looking to, their arrogance was one thing. Also their tradition. I want to bring this away to tradition. There's nothing wrong with tradition. What happens is it develops into traditionalism. And I say that in a way, let me explain. Traditions we have, hey, the way we do church right now is we've developed a tradition, right? Is there anything wrong with it? No, it's helping us connect to God, right? The problem comes when we take those traditions and they become our idols. We have to do it this way. We've always done it this way. Anybody ever hear that? Anybody ever say that? Okay. So this is some of the things that he was starting to prune from them, and he's doing that in us. Think of the disciples. They had these political aspirations. They were going to use Jesus to gain a position. Hey, can I sit on your right? Can I sit on your left? See, they had these political aspirations. Anything new under the sun? Does it happen today? I want us to be careful that when we cross a boundary, when we're using God to validate a view we have politically, to gain an advantage or to gain an end that we see or think we should have. And I'm saying it for both sides of the aisle. I'm seeing things on both sides of the aisle that it frustrates me to no end to think how we sometimes distort what God may be saying. We have to be careful. And what happens is we get caught up, and I'm not saying don't get involved with politics. Please don't take that from me. I'm saying is don't let those things become something in our heart so entangled that God can't even cut them out of us. And we actually spend all our energy and time and passion into things that are not going to last forever. And God is trying to prune those things out of our heart so we can then give our heart and our life and our passion to things will last forever. Glorifying our Father, producing fruit that then reflects the true character of our Father and His heart of love for us and the world. Those are some of the things He was trying to prune out of them then. You think He's doing it now? Yes. He loves us enough to know those are the things that get entangled in our life, in our heart, that we need to be free from so we can experience the true joy. We can read a scripture. It's John 15:11. Can you put it up there, Leslie? I'm walking around this. Sorry. These things I spoke, he's telling the disciples that. I read this and I think, I can see them when they're hearing him say, I'm the vine, you're a branch, and you're abiding me, and he's going through this thing, and they're going, and they're like, okay, I don't get it yet. And he goes, basically, I'm going to say, you don't get it now, but you know what, I've spoken these things to you, that your joy may be, my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. See, this process of pruning fruit more fruit, much fruit, glorifying our Father, is a place God brings us to bring us to a place of full joy. You think, like, I'm dealing with this stuff, Kenny. It's not joyful. Anybody? I met someone last weekend, and they were talking about the joy they have come to experience through the suffering they've been going through for years. And I was like, wow. That was fruit. That's the fruit that God was working in that person's life. And it was real for them. You could see it. You knew it was in them. They had a joy that was there for them, even in the midst of their suffering. He was allowing God to prune him. There's heart issues, things that we have, whether fears, inadequacies, shame, guilt, all these things, they trigger things in us into exterior things, but we have to let God work in our hearts. And I was thinking, I was driving here this morning, about to have my notes ready, also like, ooh, God was reminding me of one that he was pointing out in my heart. And I think it's one we all deal with. I don't think I'm the only one who does not like admitting they're wrong. Okay? That's a branch we like to grow. I'm good. I'm not wrong. Hey, come on. What are you doing? Yeah. Okay, Rich. Here you go. No, but there's this, it's in our heart, we have this fear of realizing we're wrong. That there's still something wrong with me. I don't like to admit that. I don't know about you. And I don't like to admit that I can't fix it. How about you? I still think in some way, somehow, that I can overpower this thing in my heart and make it right somehow. It hasn't worked yet for me. You see, one of the main points of this section of Scripture I find is he's saying, you can't do this without me unless you're abiding in me. And as long as you try to do it on your own, you will never do it. But the promise is if you allow the Father to prune those things and allow Him and accept what He's working in your heart, guess what? There will be fruit in our life and His joy. Those are just some of the ones. And then there's one I felt I wanted to bring up. And that in regards to people leaving the church and how we might see that as pruning, and some thoughts I've been thinking about. And if we look at there's people leaving. There's something night. There's people leaving the church, right? Okay, they've left. Okay. Now we have to be careful we don't make assumptions and judgments about them or about ourselves. And that's what I want to talk about, because there is sometimes a pruning happening. And if we use the analogy of John 15, where Jesus is pruning live branches, and they're removed out, and then what's left is what he's dealing with, what he's pruning, what he's trying to produce fruit from, that he's concerned with is not producing fruit. If we understand that analogy right, what would that mean? And those are leaving, we should not assume that God's working in their lives. We like to point to others, then we'd have to go like this. Okay. So I want us to be careful we don't make assumptions and judgment about other people anywhere. They're leaving. The reality is, if God is in this imagery, He's pruning because He loves this church. Okay? The Father's heart, He's wanting to cultivate and work fruit in this church, this group of people that are here. Not, well, He's probably working in the ones that are left too. I'm assuming God's caring about them also. So we have to think about that. So don't make assumptions about them, and also don't make assumptions of ourselves that we're good. See, we're the ones left. We're good. Yeah. Be careful. The reality is God is always pruning. I haven't found a perfect person yet. Have you? We're all in this process of pruning, progression, bearing more fruit. We're on our way to bearing much fruit because God wants to use us to continue to grow and to become more like Jesus. So if that's the case, I would suggest that we now become self-examined. I don't mean to say, okay, let's examine Dave. Or let's examine, I'm talking about our own self. Because the strength of a community is with we are willing to submit and be in tune with Jesus ourselves individually.
Amen.
It's not trying to find unity with each other. When we find connection to our Father and allow Him to work in us this pruning process, and then we abide in Jesus, guess what happens? We then start abiding together. That's how it works. So I want to caution us and encourage us. Bless those that lead. Whether we may think it's right or a wrong reason, it's better to say, the Lord bless you wherever you go. Do you be a blessing to wherever you go, and wherever you go, you find a blessing. And when we let that go, we then allow that to be cut off with any attachment that we're trying to hold on to. And then we can say, God, what are you doing in my life? Right now, help me see the work you're doing. And allow me to be submissive. See, that part, that's the next part. There's the abiding part is God's part. I mean, the pruning part is God's part. The abiding part is ours. The abiding part for us is to submit to the work. Be humble enough to self-examine. I don't mean self-hatred, because we'll go there. We'll self-loathing, we'll beat ourselves up. We can't go there. What I mean is a healthy, humble self-awareness that we're still in the process and need God's grace to bring change in our life. And we submit to what He's doing in our life, saying, God, I can't do this. Help me do this. Help me become what you're wanting me to become. And it's this relationship. So it's abiding is this Gary, I was talking with Gary a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about this. You said, how do you say, living in the presence? Taking residence up in Jesus. You see, it's maintaining this relationship with Jesus in such a way we're intimately connected with Him and allowing Him to do the things He wants to do in our life. That's what it's about. And if we do this, if we're part of this process, guess what happens? He produces fruit in us. It can't help but happen. God, we thank you. Thank you, Father, that you care about us, that your love for us knows no bounds. God, I know that there, in each one of us, that you're working something, you're pruning something. Your word says you're doing that. And so we acknowledge that, God, and we ask, God, that you give us the grace to recognize the work of pruning that's happening right now in our life. Not only recognize it, God, I pray that you help us respond. It's in our, sometimes in our DNA that it's kind of like, no way, not now. And kind of put it off or put up barriers. But I pray, God, help us put those barriers down and allow us the grace we need to say, God, yes, whatever you want to do in my life. And I pray, God, help us to be the people, help us to produce the fruit that we could never do on our own. So you be glorified. In your name we pray. Amen. So I shout out your name from the rooftop I proclaim that I am yours, I am yours. As we were singing that, I actually started singing. The Father, say it to us. We can worship God. We can tell Him, I'm yours. And I was just imagining Him shouting my name, Kenny. I'm yours. With your name there, says it to us. I'm yours. I proclaim it. And then it goes to the next one. I'm thinking, that wasn't enough. The next slide. God says, all that I am, all that I am, I place into your loving hands. And I'm like, oh my goodness, God. You understand God has placed all that He is in us, in our hands. And He said, I am yours, I am yours. God, I pray that you would give your people a heart to understand the reality that not only are they yours, but you are theirs. And that they have in their hands and in their life the fullness of all that you are. And enable them by your grace now to share that with loving hands to a world that is looking for the life that we have come to know. In your name we pray. Amen. Go in peace.